There are few mysteries in the world more captivating than the pyramids. They were built around 4,500 years ago and we don't really know how. In this series, I'll be looking at possible explanations, some you may dismiss outright, and others you may deem more plausible. Either way, let's get into it. Now I want to start off with Graham Hancock. Now he has an expertise in ancient civilizations, and he poses questions that the majority of his field would probably scoff at, like, were the pyramids built using telekinesis? Now before you start going mad in the comments, let's just hear this one out. Firstly, when asked about how the pyramids were built, Hancock answers, "To be honest, I have no answer to that question. And anybody who tells you that he or she knows how the pyramids were built are not telling the truth, because we don't know." So why might you believe that the pyramids were built using telekinesis? Well, let's look at the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. It's probably about halfway between the ground and the peak of the pyramid, and above it are 5 additional chambers, each one built on top of the other. Now today these are regarded as weight relieving chambers. Basically they're there to protect the King's Chamber from collapse of all of the weight above it. But how were these chambers built? You see, these chambers are structurally held together with huge, and I mean huge, granite beams, each one in excess of 70 tons. Now, like I said, these beams are about halfway up the pyramid. So how did they get there? Well, the truth is they're very difficult to explain in purely physical engineering terms. Now, I'm going to cover some more established theories in future videos, because the idea that highly skilled workers built the pyramids is of course the most logical theory, and it does have a lot of weight to it. This is just something that I found really interesting and I wanted to talk about. Firstly, the stones were quarried in Aswan, which is about 500 miles south of the site of the Great Pyramid. Now, the general explanation for this is that they were brought along the Nile River, which of course is feasible. Not easy by any means, but more than possible, considering that we believe there was once a harbour nearby connecting the pyramids to their causeways. So this was probably the most likely route to get the granite stones to the site of the pyramid. But what next? A common theory is ramps. Everything was hauled up these temporary ramp structures and put into place purely with human strength. But Hancock explains that for anything that large to be pulled up a ramp, the ramp couldn't exceed a 10-degree angle. It's just physics. And these granite beams are sitting around 210 feet up. So how long would a ramp have to be at a 10-degree angle to reach 210 feet above the ground? Well, to put it simply, very big. Now, I mentioned the causeways earlier. Well, the causeway leading up to the Pyramid of Khafre, which is the one next to the Great Pyramid, has a slope of 8.5 degrees and is more than 1,600 feet long. Now, although the elevation is visible, it doesn't reach anywhere near the point that they would need. Now, there is actually a really interesting theory about this particular causeway and how it may have been used in relation to the Great Pyramid. So make sure you stick with this channel for the rest of the series to hear more about that. But let's suppose the Egyptians did use the most basic method. One straight ramp from the ground 210 feet up. Well, they would have needed almost the same amount of material to build the ramp as they would need to build the pyramid itself. So it's unlikely to have been a temporary structure. It would have needed to be something permanent, which when you see impressions of what the pyramids look like on completion, a massive ramp coming off the side would have been an eyesore to say the least. And surely there would be at least some traces of evidence that something so massive was once there, and there's nothing. So maybe it was telekinesis. Now, I won't go too much into the maths right now, but there's a great video which I'll link below where Graham Hancock basically explains the numbers, and it's so fascinating. I also covered quite a bit in my mind-blowing pyramid facts video, which I think you might enjoy. One thing is the way the pyramids are so precisely aligned to true north, and the fact that the dimensions are in direct relation to the size of the earth. Like, seriously fascinating stuff. Remember, we're talking about an ancient civilization who apparently knew far less than we do, working on this magnificent project that we would struggle to recreate today. Now, Joe Rogan actually puts it really well, in that basically the idea of telekinesis, or the power of a unified consciousness, might sound ridiculous to a lot of people, but there's no doubt that they did something that we don't understand. Now, what that something is, we don't know. But by definition, whatever it is will probably sound ridiculous, right? The things that we do understand in the scientific world are understood to such a high degree and in such detail that if the Egyptians used techniques that even slightly resembled something that we recognize, we'd be able to connect the dots and work it out. Now, I need to keep pointing out that there are elements of the construction that can be explained almost without doubt. And as I said, you can check out the rest of this playlist for those videos. But certain parts, like the granite beams, well, they continue to stump scientists. There's lots of theories, but no consensus. Now, I want to put it out there now. I'm a science guy. I've always been fascinated by it, that and philosophy. But recently I've just started to wonder why science struggles to answer the questions that my philosophical brain has been wondering for years. You know, stuff like the beginning of the universe and the nature of reality, all that kind of stuff. Maybe there is something more. Again, don't at me. Let me just put it this way. Around 4,500 years ago, the Egyptians built these enormous structures which are still standing today. And with all the advances we've made as a modern civilization, We don't know how they did it. If we take the knowledge that we believe they had at the time and the tools that we believe would have been available to them, then the completion of this project should have been impossible. Now, this is where Graham Hancock believes that we're missing a chapter of the human story, that we don't have a complete understanding of how the pyramids were built because we don't have a complete picture of the history of humanity, which could be quite feasible. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. Now, modern humans have been around for about 200 to 300,000 years. So all in all, if the story is complete, we've been around for about 0.007% of the Earth's history. Now, that sounds like there would have been plenty of time for civilizations to evolve, to get way more advanced than we are, and to develop knowledge that we can't comprehend. By the way, I'm not saying that the pyramids were built by something other than humans, at least not in this video. But could it be possible that the Egyptians had a deeper understanding of the nature of consciousness than we do? A knowledge of the universe that we just don't. If you haven't watched that top 10 facts video, then go and check it out after this and then tell me that they knew less than we do. I already said that they were built to be in almost perfect alignment with the Earth in so many ways, but they also line up pretty well with Orion's belt from the Orion constellation. Now, personally, I think there has to be some significance there in connecting the universe with the Earth with such precision. It just doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. Of course, one thing that ancient civilizations seem to share is a kind of oneness and awareness of the Earth and the universe that we seem to have lost. But am I saying, or even Graham Hancock, is he saying that the pyramids were definitely 100% built by a civilization that used their telekinetic powers to raise these massive granite beams into the air? No. It's speculation. Remember Hancock's quote from the start of this video about how they were built? We don't know. And the fact is, nobody does. And that in itself should open up possibilities that we can't possibly conceive of, no matter how ridiculous they might sound. Because let's face it, all of the possibilities that we can conceive of don't get us any closer to an answer. Now, I have mentioned it a couple times in this video, but if you want to go and see my top 10 most mind-blowing facts about the pyramids, then just click right here, and I'll see you there.